technologically in the dark.
Which is, I'm always shocked when so you don't write on I suppose some sort of digital device. You must write your songs with a guitar and like a pen and a paper or something like that.
Got it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Very good. That's the way I used to write too. I've written my share of songs, but
oh, cool.
Yeah. I just want to let you know a couple of things before we start, and just so you have a context, why I also reached out, specifically wanting to chat with you and to get to know you a little bit, because I worked at Sony Music for a good period of time back in the 90s and aughts, and got handed your first album, or I believe it was, on Columbia Records.
Uh-huh.
And that's all. I was just waiting for you to go, that's all. And anyway, became an instant fan. So.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, sure. And just been keeping up and with you. I've seen you at least one time, and we're going to talk about the fact that there's going to be more opportunities for not just myself, but other people to see you just in a matter of days as you start your tour, right?
It starts October 7th in Los Angeles.
Oh, really? So wait, what is this? Okay, maybe this is, I see on the 19th of September. These are maybe stray dates, individual dates. You're going to be at Vancouver? I thought that looked like the start.
Oh, right, yeah. That's true. That is, it's not really part of the tour, but yeah, that is the first. It's like a one-off, but
I see.
But the official tour starts October 7th. It's like being sponsored by Coffee House, Sirius XM's Coffee House radio station.
Okay, so sponsored by Coffee House radio station and Sirius FM.
The Sirius XM.
XM. Excuse me. House? Sure. Oh, yes, it's one of their shows. Of course, I know. What do you think? I'm an amateur on this stuff. Of course, I know.
I don't know.
It's how I've discovered a lot of great singers and songwriters. And this is because you have a brand new album, which is going to be
October 4th.
October 4th. It's currently available on pre-order. It's called Here Right Now. I can say that I have my own copy. I've been listening to it quite a bit. I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Talk about the first single, or maybe this isn't the first single, but I know you took the title song, which is the first track, and you have essentially used it in a very particular way. You created in a way, a partnership.
Yeah. Are we recording now?
I'm sorry, it's that kind of show. Yeah, I just sort of jumped right in. I apologize.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No. Yeah. So the first single is called Here Right Now. It's the title track of the album. And, I decided I wanted to partner up with the North Shore Animal League of America, which is the largest no-kill shelter in America for rescue animals. And the cool organization, I played a benefit for them last summer out in the Hamptons, and I just fell in love with everything that they do. So I wanted to do more, and so I decided to donate all the proceeds that I make from this song, from downloads and streams, to that organization. And also I made these bracelets that say Here Right Now that we sell on my website. All the proceeds go to that organization as well. So, just trying to do my part, help out a little bit for an organization in need.
There's a very sweet, I will say, at the threat of sounding like too mushy about it, but you have this video for the single on YouTube. People should check it out. Search Here Right Now, and there's it's obvious your affection for this organization and for dogs. It's really nice.
Yeah, I have an affection for any type of animal or person that needs rescuing.
That's a good way of putting it. I mean, then you might have an affection for me, because I think I need rescuing from this episode. I don't think I'm doing a great job. But anyway.
No, I think you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm
thank
sure you don't need rescuing.
Okay. Well, I'm going to mention it again, just try to be more articulate about it. The album, Joshua. Do you go by Josh at all, or just Joshua?
Either one.
Okay. Joshua's new album, Here Right Now, available for pre-order right now, but it hits streets, door dates. What do they say? Hits streets, October 4th.
I guess, yeah.
Streaming.
Say that. I mean, pretty much everything is digital now. So,
Yeah.
although I will have vinyls and CDs for sale, but yeah, I mean, I don't think so. Pretty much everyone listens to music on their phones now.
I guess so. Yeah. Well, let's say just since it has come up. I mean, one thing I associate you with is with the birth of iTunes in a way, because I remember when your early albums came out and your early singles that you were like one of the early artists who, I don't know if take advantage of this new technology and of the way people are downloading singles and God forbid albums, but you were a popular artist that people downloaded. Is that fair to say?
Sure. Yeah. My first album, We Were Here, I had made. They were all the first songs I had ever written. I started really late in life, in the music thing. And so I wrote these songs. It kind of came out of me during a bad breakup with a girl I was living with in New York at the time, and I ended up just putting all these demos of my first songs up on iTunes myself.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them had been, got used in TV shows or films or commercials. So when I released the album itself on iTunes, it shot to the top of the charts because people had been, for months and months, people have been, watching these TV shows or films, trying to figure out where to get the music. So when I put it up on iTunes
right.
independently, that's what sort of started it all, and it started like this major label bidding war because they were like, I don't understand, who is this guy that we've never heard of? And and so it was cool. Yeah, I used iTunes right off the bat, and it really helped me.
That must have been a surprise. I mean, the whole thing must have taken you a little bit by storm.
I'm still surprised. It's been 15 years of it. It's completely a second life for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you started, and what were you as a recording artist in your early 30s? Is that possible?
I started playing music when I turned 30.
You did. So you learned guitar.
I didn't grow up playing music at all. Yeah, I got a guitar. I learned a few chords. Learned a few cover songs. Some Dylan songs, some Beatles, some Nick Drake.
The usual suspects. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then about 6 months after I learned a few chords, I just, I had been writing screenplays for about 6 years before that. And so once I learned a few chords on the guitar, I just, it was a hobby. And it was something where, like, well, someone had told me, to write a good song, you just need 3 chords and the truth, this old adage. And so I was like, all right, well, I know 3 chords now. So I just wrote a bunch of songs about what I was going through in my life that was, incredibly vulnerable and honest, and it, people related to it and those feelings, those emotions, and so that's kind of what started it all. And so I even 15 years later, like I said, it still feels shocking to me. But if you would have told me when I was 27 years old that
yes.
I'd be a recording artist, toured the world, many times over for years and years, that would be absolutely crazy.
I think if you were 29 and I said it, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And is it true?
Or even at 30, when I learned how to play the G chord, the C chords, it was like, if you had told me 15 years from then that I'd be like paying all my bills with, just by writing songs and playing music, I'd be like, you're crazy.
Well, I think that's
I feel so lucky every day still.
There's a lot of pressure, I have to assume. You're now on the map. You're now on people's radar as a recording artist. And then Columbia Records expects a second album, a third album. And you're not, a songwriting machine for the last 20 years, like maybe some contemporaries of yours, Was it rough at the first to kind of get into that whole pattern, create that pattern for yourself?
I wouldn't say it was difficult to write, because I guess I've always been a writer, and then it just started adding melodies to the things I was writing. But and just songs kept coming out of me, and they still do, luckily.
Wow, wow.
But yeah, being on the major label at first, not having any idea what I was doing at all, that was a bit rough, and I quickly got out of the major label system after that first album because I saw the major labels are these huge machines that are antiquated. They're all about the radio, and then when I say radio, I don't mean like college radio stations or NPR or Sirius XM. They're about whatever pop radio station, and they're going. If you got a single, they go for it. If it doesn't work at that kind of format, like who's next?
Yes.
Whereas back in the day, major labels, long before my time, major labels were all about artist development.
That's right.
If you look at like Motown or something like that, and you look at the history of like the Supremes and Diana Ross, it's like Berry Gordy and Motown spent so much time developing Diana Ross and the Supremes, so that finally when they hit, it was like, all right, this is the biggest thing ever. But there's not really artist development anymore. They don't have, because of streaming and the music industry has lost so much money over the past 10 years that they don't have money to develop artists anymore.
Yeah.
So they just kind of go.
So you have to ride
a wave.
Right.
I mean, nowadays, a friend of mine works for Atlantic Records now in the A&R department. She has for years, and now she was telling me the other day she has the ability now to just sign singles.
Really?
Which is crazy to me.
That's really something. I hadn't known that.
Yeah, I mean that's the world we're living in now.
Yeah.
So I like being on indie labels, or for a while, for about 3 or 4 albums, I released those albums completely independently, without even indie labels or anything. Just threw them up on the internet, and just sort of relied on my very loyal fan base to keep listening.
And I guess because of the other nature of it's all about now touring and merchandise, right? So
merchandise is one of those things that I think a lot of people will, and touring, if you're a huge artist, I don't know, singer-songwriters in my genre, it's very few and far between do they sell tons of merch.
Okay.
Or, you walk around the streets and see tons of people wearing T-shirts with like a solo artist's name on it. It's more rock bands, more like metal bands sell tons of merch.
That's right. That's true.
Like
yeah.
I don't know.
And classic
in my
rock.
Genre,
yeah.
In my genre, it's a smaller genre
right.
in terms of the entire music industry. So
right.
We kind of my peers and I kind of have to kind of make most of our living. Licensing our songs to TV shows and films and commercials and things like that, and when we garner exposure that way.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that. And of course, again, that's in a way how you launched. Your career was launched. Yeah,
my first song. I wrote my first song, and 3 weeks later, the demo of it was on a show called Scrubs.
Well, I know that the legend is that Zach Braff, he walked your song into to a friend who was on who worked for a label or something, or worked at Columbia, or how'd that go?
No. Columbia signed me after I released that first album, and it went to the top of the charts on iTunes.
I see.
That was the label I ended up signing with.
Okay.
But Zach Braff, who was just the star of that show, Scrubs, he and I have been like best friends for years.
Oh.
And when we started writing music, I played him that first song, and he said,
right.
our show is always looking for new music.
Yes.
You should send the demo of it to Lawrence, who is the creator of the show, and Bill called me like 3 weeks later and said, do you mind if I use this song on the show? And I was like, are you kidding? That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even planning on really it was just a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
But then when that episode aired, it took down the NBC website for people trying to figure out where to get that song or who was the artist, and so that was the first time I thought, wow, this is the first time like an audience has sort of come to find me.
Yes.
And in any creative endeavor I've tried. I started as a painter, and I was a little kid's art teacher after college. Yeah. And then I went into screenwriting, and I was somewhat successful there, but I was just getting by. It wasn't something I was finding a lot of success in. And so when I started playing guitar and writing songs, it was really just a meditative device. I was getting frustrated creatively with other things, and I would pick up the guitar just when I was frustrated, and then I would get my frustration out. And
right, sure. And also your
it was like really cathartic for me.
Yeah, and there you already admitted there was some angst there because you had your heart was a little bit banged up, and
I was a struggling artist in New York City, like living on like $10 a day for food, and I was going through a breakup with a girl I'd lived with for 6 years, and so I was in it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't finding that painting or screenwriting was really the outlet I needed. It wasn't the catharsis I needed. It wasn't this therapy. And I found immediately that I could just write a song, in an hour, and it would just like pour out of me. And maybe that's why the lyrics were so vulnerable and so honest, because it's just things I needed to say, things I needed to get out of my head.
Sure. No, I get that. And I'm glad that there was an audience to support that and to embrace that, because,
Me too.
there's such a, I bet, because it's like we're in a much more, I don't know, cynical time, and where it seems like the earnest songwriting approach is not as appreciated, but you're not alone. I know there's a number of wonderful artists. I was at the Traverse City Film Festival a couple of weeks ago. I only bring this up because there was a documentary with this wonderful duo, Jim and Sam.
Yeah, I know them.
I'm pretty sure you do. They open for William.
Great.
Yeah, and they're really wonderful. They're sweet, and they're just great.
Yeah.
They're such great artists, and I'm just, for me, I'm just glad there are artists out there working that they're really working in a very basic approach and honest and authentic way, like yourself.
Yeah, they do. I agree. They're great, and they're lovely people.
And they have a documentary you should see. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I know. I haven't seen it yet. But where they play the show every night for a year.
That's right.
Yeah, I have to see that.
And they actually played a song for the podcast. They did a song. There was like a filmmaker lounge, and we were meeting in the next room. I said, "Why don't we go into the filmmaker lounge where everybody's like, just sort of hanging out, and do a spontaneous song?" It's sort of in keeping with the documentary. So
right, that's a cool idea.
Yeah. Anyway. Oh, and one other thing, your new album, Here Right Now. Again, it's going to be available for streaming and purchase on the 4th of October. It's produced by Tony Berg, who is like one of my producer heroes as well. Have you worked with him before? I should know the answer to this before. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've been working with him for a few years, 3 or 4 years now.
Oh, okay. That's a great relationship. I have to assume you got very lucky.
Yeah, he's not just a brilliant musician and producer, but he's really a mentor for so many people. Not just musicians, but he's just one of those guys who.
Yes.
Whenever I have a question, I'm like.
Oh, it's philosophical.
Like a really important question. He's an amazing sounding board.
I see.
Just such a wealth of knowledge. And, I really trust his opinion on so many matters, even outside music.
So he is, there's like he's referenced as some sort of guru. I guess that's what kind
of. He really is.
Yeah.
He's just one of those guys. He always has had like a pop-in vibe wherever he creates music. So you could be working in the studio and you just know that someone could just pop in the studio to say hey and catch up with Tony, and you could be sitting there for like the next 3 hours talking and not get any work done. And it can be a little frustrating, but everyone that pops in is so interesting. You're like, that's fine.
Yeah, I understand. It's hard to stay frustrated when your world is being elevated, and
that spontaneity, I think, really helps him create.
True. Yeah.
Because you never know who's just going to walk through the door. Could be someone he hasn't seen in 20 years, and they just, that's his deal. So I love it. I love recording with him.
Do you like recording in general?
I do love it. I love playing live the most.
Right.
Of all the things. I would say I love playing live the most, then writing, then recording. Even though I do love them all. But
who?
Sorry, what's that?
Yeah, no. You were answering my question, and I was interrupting you. So, but I got that's
No.
That's the order. I got you. First is live. I can, of course, live. It should be. Hopefully, it is. Although I guess some people have a stage fright or just freak out. I don't know, but
I don't know. I know a lot of musicians who really, if you look at a lot of pop musicians these days, I think they probably love being in the studio the most because that's kind of where that sound comes from.
Sure.
And then, I don't know. I just love sitting down, writing a song on my guitar by myself, and then playing it for people. Right? It's just something just very simple about it.
Tony Berg, by the way, I don't know which albums he produced of, like Michael Penn, but there's another guy who obviously he's made more of a career writing music for, as you mentioned, for licensing music or writing music for scoring or writing, for girls or what have you. But what an incredible talent, and another guy who
he's amazing. Yeah, Tony made a lot of records with him in the day in the 80s.
I mean, he's brilliant. And what frustrated me, and I don't want to go back and be, again, like kvetching about the music business. That was not the point of this conversation. But when I got Michael Penn's album at Columbia, once again, I said, he's just not going to last on the album. It's too good. And then you would open up the magazine and see these tiny, tiny little ads. Like they're not investing. And, when they're spending all their money on Celine Dion, for instance, or Mariah Carey at the time, and those types of artists, which, it's just there was Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, because like I said, the major labels are all about top 40 radio.
That's right. Yeah, but anyway, I'm so
still, which is such an archaic thing, but still, yeah, they're slow to move.
So, given today, let's say if you're approached again, you would just say not interested.
Yeah, because if you listen to top 40 radio, which I don't, it's like, or, if you hear it, like you get in an Uber, a lot of times, they'll have top 40 radio on or something. So sometimes I'm inundated with stuff I don't really want to hear, but you hear it anyway.
Yeah.
You're, and you try to imagine like one of my songs on my new album, like in between, a Beyonce song or a Rihanna song or something like that. It just wouldn't fit at all. Like, I understand why the program directors of those radio stations would never play me on those stations. Not like I fault them. That's just the way their format is.
And
but, that's just the nature of the business. So like I said, my peers and I, who write songs similar to mine, you have to find different ways, different avenues to get our music out there.
Yes, and you're going to be, as we mentioned, touring, which is obviously one main way you do that. And you're going to be, what's the opening city you said? Was it Los Angeles?
Exactly.
Okay. And you'll be in New York in late October. On the 29th and 30th, you'll be at the Gramercy Theater, which is
correct.
Seems like the perfect size venue for you.
Yeah, I really love that place. And I love that I get to do 2 nights there, especially like right before Halloween, so I'm hoping some people are dressed up in the audience.
Yeah. And I'm going to guess a large percent of the people that are there on the 29th will also be there on the 30th.
Well, let's hope so.
The repeat of audience, the people that love you and want to see you twice, they get to see you twice, not just once.
Well, that would be great. I'm so grateful for anyone who comes out to a show.
I bet that's the case. And so currently, the Here Right Now is out as a single, and also you have the second single. Let me see. Going with you. Sorry, here it is.
Yeah, those 2 songs.
That's correct. You are correct.
They're available now.
Yes.
And then there's going to be a third song that comes out.
Which one?
In September, which is the final track of the album. It's called "What Would You Do?"
Refugee Song.
Parenthetically, it's called "Refugee Song."
Yeah. Talk about.
It's a song that I'm not a very political person. And when I write songs, I try to write in universal themes. I think if you get really political, you have to, as a songwriter, like Bob Dylan did in the 60s, 70s. You kind of have to be someone who is really staying up with the news, with all politics, with all sides, and be incredibly well informed. And though I do watch the news and sort of keep up, but not enough to really boast that I am speaking very knowledgeably about all these issues. So I tend to write about what I'm going through. They say write what you know, and what I know is what I'm going through in my life, what's going on in my head and my heart. But I will say, that being said, This past year, when I was watching the news and I saw all these children being separated from their families at the border, I was so moved by it that I thought, I just need to say something. And so I tried to write a song from the perspective of one of these children being separated from their families. And so it's a very important song for me. I think it's my favorite on the album. And so that'll come out in September.
Oh, I was going to ask you.
I'm not sure of the exact date. I can't remember. I can't remember the exact date. But, but I think within a couple weeks.
Great. I can tell people it's a beautiful song, and
Thank you.
Sure. And you know, when it comes out as a single, hopefully it'll be on my radar so I can help share that information with.
That would be ever so helpful. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course. And there are 2 covers. You do enjoy your occasional cover. I know that as a music fan yourself, I'm sure the finding just the right songs is probably a little bit challenging, but very gratifying also when you get that right song.
Yeah, every now and again, I love taking a song that I've loved my whole life and trying to reinvent it. Because I never understood when people do covers, and it's like the same song, but it's them singing it instead of the original artist. And
yes,
I'm like, well, that just sounds like karaoke to me. And that's fine, but it doesn't interest me. I'm much more interested in taking an amazing song and trying to find a new approach.
Yeah, and where your authentic nature and your approach fits with it. You're right. I mean, that's the trick, exactly. Isn't it? So it doesn't sound.
Exactly.
It doesn't sound contrived. So your choices for this album are Tom Petty's "I Won't Back Down," which I think is a brave choice because I mean Tom Petty. You know, that's like.
Yeah, I mean he was one of my heroes.
I'm still broken up. I'm feeling a little bit choked up as I even say his name.
I was lucky enough to be at the last show he ever played. Actually, it was at the Hollywood Bowl.
Where?
I mean, obviously we didn't know. None of us knew that was going to be his last show.
I hope not.
When he passed away a couple weeks later, I was like, I can't believe I witnessed the last time he ever played live. You know, and it was the most fun concert I've ever been to. I mean, screaming every lyric at the top of my lungs with 17,000 people. It was like, it was euphoric.
That's incredible. I saw him a few times myself, and he's one of the few artists where it could be kind of, you know, have that intimate relationship with his audience, even in an arena, which isn't my favorite place to see music.
Yeah, I mean, he was just one of those guys, who just never took shit from anyone. He was like always going to do it his way, and it was the best way.
True. And he had by the way, his own refugee song, just so happens.
Yeah,
but
not a bad song at all.
Just in case you want to ever cover that one, I'm just mentioning. And then the other cover is also you're reaching for pretty big, names here. The Stones, in this case, "She Smiled Sweetly," which is not an oft-covered song of theirs.
What, the "She Smiled Sweetly"?
Yeah, I don't remember anybody covering that.
I mean, I've always loved that song so much. Their album "Between the Buttons."
That's a great album.
Song is on. I've worn out that vinyl over the years.
Yeah, you still a vinyl guy? Do you get vinyl when you can?
Yeah, I do.
I just don't.
I mean, I listen to either MP3s or vinyl. I mean, I don't even have a CD player.
Is that true?
But in the car, obviously, I can't play vinyl, so
No, what kind of lame car do you have? You can't play vinyl? If you crack it, if you break it into several pieces, it should fit into the CD player, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly.
Just my advice.
Most of my vinyls are my dad's old record collection that he gives me every time he comes to visit. He'll bring like 5 vinyls.
Oh, that's a nice way of...
It's like his little tradition of passing them down.
Oh, nice.
And he has a great record collection, so I'm very fortunate. And then every now and again I'll buy a vinyl, but I don't... most of the time if I buy a vinyl, it's still from, the 60s and 70s. I listen to mostly old music.
I'm not surprised that we have a similar taste in music because, obviously my road to you and collecting your albums, I feel like I know you as an artist pretty well. So it doesn't surprise me that we should have a similar love of these artists. But I will be at one of those, at least one of those shows in October here in New York City.
Great. I can't wait for those shows. I'm so excited.
I know. I haven't seen you in a long time. I saw you, I'm trying to remember which theater. It was like a ballroom, though. So I was just trying to remember.
In New York?
Yeah. It was like after you did an album, I forget, I have to look, but it was that you're a little edgier. I don't know. Yeah, I guess edgier. I think you were playing electric.
Well, that could have been an album I made called The Rock and the Tide.
Mm-hmm. I might be, it may be that one.
I think it was my third album, and I made that album like basically live in a studio with this Danish band, and I recorded it in London.
Oh.
It was totally different for me, but I had so much fun doing it.
Yeah, no, I think that was the one, and I think I saw you on that tour, and it was in a ballroom in New York, so I didn't know if it was Hammerstein or if it was, I don't know, I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Bowery?
I played so many.
Bowery is too small.
I'm sure it was that.
Yeah.
But I played so many venues in New York over the years. I can't remember which one
it's not
you're talking
important.
about. But I don't think I've ever had a show in New York City that I just didn't love more than anything.
Oh, good.
I lived in New York for 10 years and saw so many concerts at so many venues there. So every time I'm in New York playing, I'm just like, oh, I can't believe I get to do this. I'm on the other side now.
Well, now you come to New York, you played the venues, so that's our benefit.
I'm a lucky boy.
You're paying it forward by playing in New York now, so kids or young folks that were your age now can see you in New York. So
sure, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, Here Right Now, which kind of speaks to you. What was the first album again?
We Were Here is the first album.
We Were Here. I know that. We Were Here. Your first album was We Were Here, and now Here Right Now. It seems like your first album, and this one are kind of talking to each other a little bit. I don't know if that was intentional, the titles, but it almost is like there's a nod to your first album in that.
No, I mean this song Here Right Now was really, I wrote it. I was thinking, I've had such a difficult time over the years trying to, like, as cliche as it sounds these days, being in the moment, being present.
I see.
And I would always get anxiety about what's going to happen next in the future, and so I wrote that song essentially to myself as a reminder every time I play it, just to sort of enjoy where I'm at right now and try to live in the moment more than I have been.
It's great advice for anybody.
Yeah, I mean it's not like a new idea or anything like that, but it's definitely something that has become a trendy cliche, I think, because so many of us do have such a problem living in the present. Live in the present
and pre-order Joshua Radin's new album. It'll be available on October 4th, as I already said, but I don't invite a lot of musicians onto the show. I generally bring people, I bring a lot of film people on. I'm
honored.
No. I mean, I would love to again next time for whatever reason, or do it in person at some point because, I try to do something a little special with the show. I think you're a special artist, and
thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm thrilled that we finally were able to do this. So thanks, Josh, and
my pleasure.
I'll see you in New York City, I hope, at the end of October.
All right, see you in Halloween. I'll be wearing my Joshua Radin mask.
It's very, very scary. Okay. Take care. Have a good
great day,
week. Okay, you too.